Has an Exit podcast with host Teddy Tarantino. New episodes every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget to subscribe.
All right, welcome to Hell Has an Exit. Today I have Rachel on the show. What's your Instagram handle?
Rachel Elizabeth X0.
X0, okay. So you're pretty popular on social media. I appreciate you for coming out all the way from Austin, Texas. We talked a little bit yesterday. I wasn't trying to get too much to know your story, so it would be like a fresh take on the show. You've been clean for 6 years or 5 years?
Almost 6 in April.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where are you from?
I'm from New York originally. Yeah.
How did you get so big on social media? Did you like set out to get big on social media?
No. During quarantine, my oldest son had TikTok, and so I downloaded TikTok and just started getting on there. We were all bored and had nothing to do during quarantine. So I got on there and I started just trying to do the dance videos and knowing damn well I can't dance. Okay. And so that didn't work out for me. So I just started like randomly like venting on there, especially about mom stuff. I had just had my youngest son and one of my videos like went viral and I got like 33,000 followers overnight.
Wow. What was the video about?
What they don't tell you before you have a baby.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was a lot of just like.
What don't they tell you before you have a baby?
They do not tell you that you get like shakes after you have a baby. Like I had no idea. You get cold sweats for like at night for like 6 weeks. Breastfeeding is really hard. What else delivering the placenta after you have a baby. So it's like you have to like deliver a whole nother thing afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it just
lots of fun stuff. Yeah.
Gotcha. Like women's stuff.
Yes.
Gotcha. Interesting. How long were you clean at that point? Probably like 3 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think like 2-3 years.
That's cool because sometimes I see people like get like 90 days clean and they set out to be like a recovery advocate on the internet. And I'm just like, you probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah, I had no.
Yeah, you weren't like
that was not even my intent at all. I started with mom content and then I just started making more content and then slowly got into the recovery stuff. And yeah, it just went from there. I don't know. I really don't know what happened, to be honest with you. I don't really understand it.
Do you feel pressured to do the social media stuff?
No, not. I really
like
enjoy it. Yeah, it's fun for me. The fact that it's my job now is kind of wild because that's never.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's all you do?
Yeah, social media and.
Wow, how do you get an income from it?
So I do brand deals.
Gotcha.
Views, money from ads and stuff like that. And
oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're from Westchester, New York. What was growing up like for you?
So growing up, I was kind of I don't want to say weird child. I just always remember feeling very like different than everyone else, I lied a lot as a kid, like a lot. And
were you like I lied a lot too, and for me, like I got excited from like manipulating people to believe it.
Yes.
And I would get off on like just coming up with something like random, like it wouldn't even benefit me. I just would get off on like the skill of I made you believe this.
That was me 100%. And looking back on it now, I'm like, maybe that was a red flag, but I just was not aware of so many things for so long. So yeah, I just really like never felt a part of. I wasn't, I had like a chubby phase growing up. I wasn't one of like the cool kids and all that. And even like over time, I started getting more friends and hanging out with more of a, popular crowd. I still just like never felt like something was always missing. And I was also very depressed at a young age. And I couldn't even tell you why. I had very strict parents. And I couldn't hang out with my friends how like other people were hanging out with their friends. And I think that looking back on it, I think I felt very isolated, and alone. And then that I was like running away by the age of, like 10. I remember when I was like 10 years old, I lived across the street from like a park and I wanted to run away and I packed like 10 rolls of toilet paper, like the most random shit you would ever like. What am I going to do with 10 rolls of toilet paper? I brought like, I don't know. I like put it in like a stick I had always seen like in the cartoons when they have a stick
like
in like
a
a bag.
stick in the bag. Wow.
With like something tied. I think I took like a sheet or something and tied it and went across the street to the park for like an hour. I don't think my parents even noticed.
Like
and then
Huckleberry
I was like,
Finn.
yes. And I was like, okay, this is I have nothing to do here. So like went home. But I wasn't really, by the age of like 8, I was just like not happy at all.
And you have a sibling, right?
Yeah, I have a younger sibling.
And your younger sibling was like fine throughout. Like
he is the sweetest angel baby ever. He really is.
Wow.
Like he's like the total opposite of me. He did everything right in his life. I'm just so proud of him all the time. And he saw me go through like everything that I went through, which is it's tough because there was a lot. But yeah, he's the sweetest.
Let's introduce our other guest. This is Takashi, 6'9". This is my cat.
That's the sweetest boy.
So Rachel thought it would be good to I don't normally let him in the podcast room because he like goes crazy, but
he's chilling now. Yeah.
But yeah, he's an odd eye sphinx. He's 9 months old, and one of his eyes is green and one of them is blue, and he's a sweet little.
He's the sweetest baby boy.
Yeah, I love my cats.
Yeah.
Okay, so early childhood. When did like the acting out start happening for you?
So like I said, it started with like the wanting to just like escape, run away type stuff. And then I think when I was like 11 or 12, I started experimenting. Like I started smoking weed. And the first couple times I smoked weed, I didn't get high. Like it took me a minute. And then I remember like the third or fourth time, all of a sudden it like hit me. And your girl was just like, and I was like, what is this? I will never forget that first time I was in like a pizzeria and like life didn't feel real. And I was like, what is this? And then once I felt that.
You liked it?
The first time was really weird because it was different than all the other times. Like, I felt like I was in a dream.
Like it was trip.
It was weird the first time. But after that, I kind of got used to it. And then I just started smoking all the time. I wanted that feeling all the time because like I felt like I just didn't feel how I was feeling before. It made me feel better, right?
Yeah.
And then, then alcohol and doing all that. And through high school, through middle school, it was really just like weed and drinking. And then that graduated, to
Were you getting
stuff.
Disciplined or in trouble at that time or no?
So my parents sent me to like a adolescent psych ward when I was like 12 in middle school because I had ran away with my best friend and we were like with like the biggest weed dealer in our city like all night driving around
Wow.
at 12.
Yeah,
and like
crazy.
I thought I was grown at that age. I was like, I'm literally grown. What are you talking about? So looking back at it now, that's so terrifying. Like I can't believe what my parents I can't even imagine what they were feeling. But yeah, I just didn't care about anything or anyone. And so we went to school that morning after being out all night, like running away. I don't know why we went to school. It was so dumb. And my parents came to pick me up from school and brought me like right to the psych ward.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then what was high school like?
So high school, my parents put me in Catholic school because I was acting out and they thought that would save me, I guess. But it ended up being even worse. So I grew up in like an inner city. There's a lot of low income and I went to, and a lot of people weren't partying. It was like a very small amount of people at like my public school. A lot of people looked down on it. Like when we were like 12, 13, they were like, that's they would call you a crackhead if you smoke weed. It wasn't cool. It wasn't cool until later on in high school. Then and I was like, I was doing that, way before you. But then I went to this private Catholic school. And those kids know how to drink. They have way more access to a lot of things. So.
And they're like more advanced in how they get away with it because they do have a lot of structure and stuff. So they're way sneakier. So it creates a lot of like criminal thinking.
Well, there was a lot of parents that were also okay with it. They would let us, you know what I mean? Like they would, as long as we were in the house, we could drink. But I really realized like I drank to the point where I blacked out like every single time. My friends would just like have a few and like get drunk, but not like I was always like a mess, I like couldn't stop. But I didn't really realize that was an issue like at that time. It took me a little longer. I think when I was like 14, 15, I started experimenting with other things, you know, like the coke and the e-pills was like my first like real, like I was like, okay, like when I did not get it, I would throw a tantrum like a toddler. And that's when I knew, I'm like, okay, I'm a little different. No, everyone else is fine. And I'm like, I am not going to be okay if I don't get this. Like it's the end of the world, you know? And that's when I knew I was like, okay, like I'm a little different. I never like denied that I was an addict. I kind of realized it. I just always thought that I could manage it. You know, I was like, I can figure this out somehow.
How many like e-pills were you doing?
I mean,
were you doing it like every day or just on the weekends?
It was just on the weekends because I couldn't go to school rolling face. Like it was one of those things that you can't. I couldn't hide it, but I was thinking about it all during the week. I couldn't wait for the weekend. You know what I mean? All the time, it consumed my whole brain. It was like you know, the compulsion, the obsession was there, and it was like just could not wait for the weekend. At all times. And so that was like how I lived my life. And then, you know, I would be like severely depressed during the week from like all of my chemicals in my brain being gone. And then that made my mental health issues like so much worse.
Yeah.
And then one night, we couldn't get it. And I was having one of my tantrums and, someone offered me a line of Oxy, like the 80s. I don't, you probably remember the 80s days, right? Yeah. And so I did it. And the first time I did it, like so many people, I was puking, you know, I didn't necessarily like it. It was a very different feeling than what I was used to. But I just kept doing it. And I did feel bad, like that like need.
It's crazy. I wouldn't think they were that prevalent in New York. They're pretty popular over there.
80s?
80s.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. We got took down at the opiate, like with pills in the 80s. And then, you know, once they made them like I don't know if you remember when they made them the
uncrushable ones.
Yeah. There's a word, the OPs.
Opanas?
No. They made the Oxy so you couldn't crush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be like a gel.
Yes.
I would
exactly.
still snort it.
Well, we used to put it in the microwave. We used to like, there was a way you had to do it, like get the coating off and like do a certain way and then put it in the microwave. It was like a whole process, but it was still wasn't the same. So then everyone went to blues, you know,
blues and then Dilaudid.
Yeah. Yeah. So I went from snorting 80s, to then snorting blues and then smoking them, and then I really enjoyed smoking them, and like that's when I started really, you know, I got sick the first time.
I was gonna ask like what, because that's always like the pivotal moment.
Yeah, and this was
like,
during
when did you first get sick?
Yeah, this was during the 80s phase. This was before, you know, they did all that, because I was in high school and that's why I remember it. Me too. I think it was 11th grade or whatever. And I was doing them every day, and it was in the beginning stages, I guess, because it must have been like maybe a few weeks to them, because I was doing them all the time, and I didn't know what opiates were when I first did them. Like I didn't realize it's like basically heroin, you know, it's opiates. I didn't realize.
I didn't understand that. Yeah, I didn't even know the severity of it because I had smoked crack already. So to me, when I was already on crack, I'm like, well, I'm going to get off crack by doing these pills. So I'm like, this is a legal pill. How bad could it be?
Right.
And then I would do Valiums and stuff to come down from crack. So I kind of saw it like as like a Valium, but like it would give you a lot of energy. So like I thought it was like, because on crack you can't leave the house. So like I'm like, oh, well, now I have all this energy and I'm like more productive and I'm able to leave the house. And then before I ever did opiates, my parents sent me to military school, and I failed for everything except for opiates. And I remember being like, why would that? I remember thinking like, why would that even be on the drug test? No one does that, because I thought it was like opium. Yeah. Like Edgar Allan Poe shit, you know, like I was like, no one does opium. I didn't know that opiates was the same family as heroin, and that the painkiller, like I have friends who like shoot dope and shoot, I'm sure you have too. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, it's like literally the same thing.
Right. And I didn't realize that. And that's funny that you said about the normal thing, because once I crossed over from like the e-pills to the, you know, to opiates and to oxys, I felt the same way. I was like, I'm normal. I could do this anywhere. I don't have to like, hide myself. I don't have to be a weirdo, like hold up in the room. I don't have to worry about me like, on
grinding
out
your
here
teeth.
being crazy and just looking like an absolute crackhead, So I felt normal. So that made me, do it so much more. I was doing it all the time. So yeah, so I started doing them, and then I remember being in high school, and I went to school, and I guess I hadn't had them for like a day or so, and I didn't even think anything of it. I went to school, and I was like, I felt like shit walking. I remember walking to school, and I got to school, and I was like, I was in homeroom, and I was like, I need to go to the nurse right now because something is not, I'm sick. Like, I need to go home. So I walked home, and I was sick for an entire week. I thought I had the flu.
It took you that long to figure it out?
Yes. Okay, so listen. So then my boyfriend at the time, like days into this, was like, you're probably going through withdrawal. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, what? What do you mean? And so once I realized that effect that it had on me physically, I was like, okay, I have to make sure I have this at all times, so it just made me go that much harder, and just like really, I had to hustle and make sure that I had it all the time so that wouldn't happen.
It's so crazy because like I remember when I first started withdrawing, I remember being like sweating and stuff, and I was like, maybe pills make you really cold or hot, so like when you don't have them you get hot. And then I remember feeling sick, and then I remember my friend being like, oh, withdrawals are a myth, it's all in your head, it's not real. And I'm like, really? Whatever. And then like I talked to someone else, and they were like, because he would do them sporadically,
right? And
like I was doing them for, I would probably say almost every day for like 4, 5, 6 months. Like I just never went without it until that one time,
right?
And then I remember I was feeling so sick, and then as soon as I did a blue, I was like, or I think like an oxy or whatever, it just instantly
goes away, right?
And then like you get it. I got addicted to that like 0 to 100, because like sometimes when you would do pills every single day, there wouldn't be like much excitement, but like that feeling of like being so sick and coming up with money and like coming up with that $20,
the ritual of it,
it would feel like you won the lottery. It'd be like the best fucking feeling ever. Literally, there was times where I was dope sick, and then like I would feel better as soon as the money touched my hand. Yeah. Like mentally, you would just know that you're not going to be sick.
Right.
And like that's how powerful addiction is that your brain is just so dependent on that drug. But yeah, the ritual is crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Being like dope sick to like drooling is like the craziest.
Yeah, when
and it's every single day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so what happened after that?
What was I on? Okay, so yeah, then I got sick. That's what we were talking about, right?
Yeah, the first time you got sick, and then your boyfriend said you're withdrawing, and then it took you a week. Yeah.
So I laid up in bed, and I feel like he didn't tell me this until the end of like when I was sick. Like so I was through it, but like I still hated the way I was feeling, and I was like, okay, now I just have to make sure like I never am without them.
Wow.
And so then that went on for years. I went to my first detox, I think. And then I got pregnant with my son at 18, my oldest son. And I thought that would like make me stop completely. He would save me. And during my pregnancy, it was a lot easier to not do what I was doing. It was still hard as hell. And I definitely had my moments, but like after I had him, they gave me pain medicine at the hospital, and my boyfriend was like, in there.
Was he using the whole time?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then right after he was born, I was right back to what I was doing. And I felt like it made me a good mom. I was able to do, and I'm a teen mom, I'm trying to figure this out. I'm like still in my active addiction, but I felt like at that time it made me better, and it made me like be able to do all of these things that I feel like I would struggle with normally. And I was really delusional around that. Like for a long time, I thought it made me so much better. I'm like, I am living my best life. I can do everything better on this. Like I can't do this. I can't do these things when I don't have my.
I know. I always tell people that like opiates make painting a fence in 200-degree weather like fun.
Anything you have to
anything
do,
you have
chores,
to do, waking up
laundry,
early,
right,
driving across country,
right.
like you could walk in the desert, and like if you're high on opiates, you're just like skipping.
You feel like you could do anything.
Yeah, it just puts you in like this amazing mood. And then like, yeah, sometimes your life gets so fucked up that like it is still fucked up, but it really makes anything that much.
It makes it all go away when you're high. Because I was doing a lot of, I was stealing, I was losing jobs, I was stealing, I was getting caught first, I was pawning stuff, and it got bad, and I would feel terrible for those things like as I'm doing them, but I'm so sick and like it just nothing mattered in that time. So I'm doing all these things that I would never do normally if I was not,
yeah, it's kind of like you have to, and you're like, I couldn't really feel bad because it was like, I mean, I'm in a corner, like,
right.
Like
it was like survival.
Yeah, it's like like what the human spirit is able to do under those stress situations on a daily basis. It's like, yeah, if you had, I used to think like when I would rob a house or something, like, dude, if they know how bad I was like withdrawing, they would give me the money.
Right.
Like,
I deserve this. Yeah, right. Like,
Like, dude, it's not my fault. Like, I'm, what do they care about $300? This is like literally life changing to me.
Yeah. That's how the mindset goes.
And then it's like, I could be doing it. I could be, killing somebody.
Right.
Like,
I could be doing so much worse. Yeah. Like, you should be happy. Actually,
exactly.
You're welcome. I was doing a lot of stuff like that, and I felt so entitled. Like I remember feeling so guilty as I'm doing things, but I also at the same time, like there was so much like double-sided feelings to my addiction, because with that, like I would feel guilty, but I would also at the same time, I felt so entitled
to it,
like to everything in my life. I'm like my family's money. They literally made me be a person here on earth. Like I deserve this, or, whatever the case may be. And the same thing with actually me, I wanted to be sober. Like once shit started getting bad, half of my brain really wanted to be sober, like really did throughout, but like my addiction was just so powerful and I had no idea how to like surrender and let it go for so long. Like I was in my active addiction for over 10 years. And then I went to my first.
Would you dream about what it would be like to be like totally sober?
I think in the beginning, I was just like, I didn't really think about it too much. I just knew that I didn't want to be feeling like, the way that I was feeling, like being sick all the time, having to do all of the things, like things just started getting like negative and weren't as fun as they were in the beginning. And I started having consequences. And I was just like, half of my brain, like I said, was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I went to my first detox rehab at 20, I think I was. Maybe I was 19. I don't remember. But I went in there thinking I was ready. And then I got in there and I'm telling, when they ask you like how much you're doing and, all this stuff like that. And I told them like way more. I told them I'm doing Xanax when I wasn't, just because like I was med seeking.
Yeah, me too.
Right. And so that now I'm more fucked up in detox than I was even out there. They put me on methadone. They had me on all this stuff. Wow. I was knocked the whole, like I was so.
This was private treatment or was this?
This was a private treatment center. Yeah. In Connecticut. And so I went there. I mean, it's not really their fault. Like I told them, they're giving me what I told them. I'm telling them I'm doing like, the
Benzos
most,
and all
right,
this,
everything.
alcohol,
So they gave me this whole cocktail and I was just like so done the whole entire time. And then I'm still like, I'm literally to the point where I'm almost comatose. Like I'm in my bed. I couldn't get up for groups. I don't remember one group from that whole time.
How long were you there for?
I was only, my insurance kicked me out, so I'll get to that in a second, right? And then I would also be doing jumping jacks in the hallway to get my clonidine, to get the little trick. I'm like, gotta get my heart rate up, gotta get because I just needed all of the meds that I could get. And then I think I was there for only for like 7 or 8 days before my insurance
oh wow,
kicked me out or something. And now I'm on this high ass dose of methadone and all of these things that I was on. So I went home to kick cold turkey after that. And that was like the worst experience of my life Like I remember drinking NyQuil. I was like hallucinating. I was so sick. Like my mom had her friend come watch my kid. They're downstairs. I'm up in my attic in like the spare room we have, just like kicking, like miserable for days. And then I think I went to a meeting or I did something and I was able to get like a pill or some shit like that. And then from then on, you know, it was just like that cycle of me going in and out. And then I started down the line. I went to another treatment center in 2013 and that was a really good experience. And that made me more, I was like getting to the point where I was ready, but I still wasn't there yet.
When you first went to meetings, were you like, oh, this shit works? Or were you skeptical? Like, did you think it was corny? Like,
no, I didn't. So I went to my first meeting, I think when I was like 17 or 18. And I immediately felt at home. I did. I like listening to people. I was like, holy shit, there's other people like me. I didn't even think about doing the steps or anything like that though. Like I just kind of thought like, okay, you just have to go to the meetings. I thought it was a really cool place, but I was not like super willing to like do that and be all in it, you know?
It's crazy because we have like a really similar story, but like at 17, I went to meetings and I immediately was like, wow, this is where I belong.
Yeah.
And like no one looked like me. People were like way older than me. People had like all these crazy stories. But like when we would talk, I'm like, dude, this dude he's talking the way that I think.
Right.
And I was like, and when you live your whole life thinking that you're the only one like this, and it's like, even in my little group of friends, like I was like the crackhead out of other crackheads. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that was me too.
Like I was always the one that they were like, bro, we do drugs, but like you are off the chain.
Yeah.
Like we're not, you know, get out of my car. Like we're not talking to you anymore. Like don't ever come around here anymore. Like, you know, other like crack dealers refusing to sell me crack, you know?
They're like, get out of here.
Yeah. And it's like, when I went to meetings, it was like for the first time, I met so many people that I didn't want to relate to them. Right. I was going there like I have nothing in common with these people, and it just happened, and I couldn't get out of it. And I don't know. I think that like people always ask me like how I got clean young. I think getting clean, like I like to do crazy shit. So like when I was young, I'm like, well, smoking weed's cool. Oh well, doing coke is cool. Well, what if we smoked crack? You know. So like I was always like that one upper person where I had already done opiates and done crack. So I was like, what would be the craziest thing to do now? Yeah. So I used to be like, well, it would be crazy if I didn't do any drugs and I like did all this recovery stuff. So to me, I started to get like obsessed about like the total opposite of what I was doing, because that would be the craziest thing I could do. And then it seemed like rebellious to not do any drugs or drink or anything and like just go to these meetings. So that's how like I saw it when I was young.
Yeah.
But you related, but you were like, yeah, I'm not going to do the work.
I just wasn't ready yet. You know, I didn't fully I just wasn't ready to do the work. I spent a lot of years just going to meetings. I couldn't figure out why they weren't working. I would go, but I felt so at home at the meetings that I would go to meetings high, like all the time.
So you always knew that this was where you needed to go.
I knew it was home for me. You know what I mean? Like I felt that from the beginning, and the fact that people would welcome me back. They knew I was high. You know, I would go to meetings like, you know, saying like, oh no, you know, I'm sober. I would share whatever. I'm high, you know, the whole time. But they loved me anyways. They like, you know, I was always welcome back. And I just really loved that. But I just wasn't, you know, I wasn't willing to do the work for a long time.
Yeah, it's crazy how people go to meetings for years. And at every meeting they say, work the steps, get a sponsor, do service, and your life will get better. And they go to meetings and don't do any of those things. And for years, you're like, why is it not working?
Right. No, that was literally me.
It's crazy.
Because I just thought that, like, I thought the fellowship was like, thought that was enough for a long time. I didn't really hear what I needed to be doing for a while. Like, I got one sponsor. Finally, after like years, I'm like, all right, let me try it. But I didn't believe in God. I had all issues with whatever. And I think we got through steps like 1 through 3, maybe. And I relapsed because I wasn't in it. I just wasn't in it, you know? I just couldn't stop. I was in this cycle of like, I would detox myself. And most of the times, but when I was with this specific sponsor, I had relapsed for like 2 weeks. Actually, this was before I started detoxing myself at home. And where I'm from in New York, they don't have a lot of treatment centers. There's like no rehab. So it's like hospital detoxes. And so we planned I like did my last thing, and I'm like, I need to go away somewhere because I can't be at home. Like I need to be somewhere where I can't access things and I can't, go and do what I need. I need to be like locked up, like lock me up. So one night where I was like, okay, like I need to go into detox, we went to a hospital, because it's like first come, first serve, but like, also, you need to be like an alcoholic. Yeah. You can't just like, if you're just opiates, most of the time they will not. Like,
and if you're just crack, no way.
Right. Yeah. So they made me drink a whole entire thing. It was like Jack Daniels. It was like I had to drink and in this specific time so that when I got there. You
were drunk and you had alcohol in your system.
Now, mind you, I'm dope sick. When you mix dope sick with alcohol or coke, like I've tried every single thing, every single other drug to do like while I am sick, it always ends up so much worse. So now I am absolutely shit-faced. We get to the hospital and I get like, through the ER or whatever. And they're like, we have no beds tonight. Sorry. So now I'm shit-faced. I'm dope sick and they have to drop me back at home. And then the next morning.
Do it again.
Yeah. So the next morning we went to this other like, just like disgusting detox in like Yonkers, New York, like and I got in there and they wanted to give me methadone and I had only been using for a couple weeks, so like I wanted to do cold turkey. I really just wanted a place to go. Yeah. And then they were like, you can't do that, this is a medical detox, like you're just taking up a bed. I'm like, my insurance is still paying you, like can we just like let me stay here please. But I ended up literally hating that place anyways. And I think I left within 24 hours. I called my boyfriend to come pick me up and then I was using again. And I just went through this cycle of just like continuing to do that. And then I learned how.
Were you always in a relationship? What were relationships like? Oh man. Were you
I was
like,
so, yes.
Were you one of those like you'd fall in love?
I would go into meetings. Here's what I would do.
Fall in love.
I would go into meetings and I would find the sickest dude in the room and me with like 2 days clean, I would be like, I can save him. That is literally what I'm going to do. Right. And then, it would always be a newcomer. We would end up relapsing. It was the same story every single time. And then I was so codependent. I always had a boyfriend. Like that was a big problem for me. I could not be alone. Which is so crazy because now my life for the last, like, since I got sober is like such a 180. I didn't have girlfriends like that. Like I had like my girl running buddies and that was about it. I never had a good group of like girlfriends that I talked to consistently. I was like that, girls, there's so much drama. Like I hate that.
I hate girls.
Yeah. I was just terrified of relationships with women. Like I just was. And I also got a lot of validation from men and like I thrived off of that. And
how'd you change that behavior? Because honestly, I think that like for men too, but I see like a lot of parents who are like, well, we got to separate her from the boyfriend because that's the problem. And like, it's true. And it's like,
part of the
if
problem.
she doesn't want to separate, like, she needs to figure it out because she'll just find somebody else tomorrow at another rehab,
exactly.
So like, it's really hard because I've seen people die over this. Right. Like every single time you're in rehab, you're all gung-ho and then you meet this dude and then you guys leave together and then it's like, dude, that's the problem. So it's like, how did you change that behavior? Like,
so it took me a minute. There's a whole storyline of like, I got a rehab boyfriend. Even when I went to Austin, the first round, I got a rehab boyfriend, but we stayed sober for the most part for like 60 days. And then I relapsed because I wasn't fully focused on my program. And then after that, we broke up for a little bit and then we got back together and then he relapsed and he died. He died at, August 2018, I want to say. And when that happened, I had like 90 days sober. So I went back to rehab after that little relapse that I had, and I put myself on a boy ban. My rehab was like, if you come back, no boys, no nothing. And I actually took it seriously that time. So I did that. I didn't look at any of the boys when I was in rehab. I like focused on my stuff. I've been sober since then. What do you like? What turns out if you listen to suggestion and you actually like do shit that other people tell you, it can work, you know, which was really hard for me to grasp for so long. But after he passed away, I had a couple other like little relationships, but something like was just not sitting right in my soul. And I was getting into the step work. Like I was getting into the step work with my sponsor. I was looking at myself. I was realizing like all of these things. And I was doing a lot of inner healing. And then all of a sudden, and I was also making so many relationships with women, right? Like I had a core group of women. I was talking to more women. And then eventually it just kind of, I went completely opposite where I
had a whole bunch of girlfriends.
Right. And I was like, I didn't want to deal with men like that in that capacity anymore. And then I was single for like 3 years because I went through a whole bunch of shit with my baby daddy. He came down to Austin and he relapsed because we got pregnant with Silas. Like it's a whole, my life is like a whole drama, you know, novella over here. And
are you Hispanic?
No.
Okay.
No. Why?
Because you said novella.
La biblioteca, el azul, en la casa.
So you speak Spanish.
Yeah, I'm literally fluent. So yeah, I was single for years after that, you know, and I'm chilling, you know. I don't know.
So like the boy band is like really interesting because like it seems like such a petty thing, and sometimes like I've worked in treatment for a long time, so it's like sometimes like a woman's like 43 years old and you're like trying to put them on a boy band. They're
right.
Like, you know, like, but a lot of times it is like, and it's anything like anything that distracts you from your recovery needs to go. And honestly, at the suggestion of when I suggest some like to stop doing a certain behavior, if there's a big like thing in someone that's like, no, that's like a sign that that's probably what needs to go. So there was like a time where like a friend of mine was begging to go to treatment. She relapses all the time. She also is like in a relationship all the time, but she also has like a lot of like body image issues and like a lot of women struggle with like bulimia and stuff like that. And her thing was like she was like a fitness model, but it's like, dude, you're a fitness model, you compete, but you're also like shooting heroin.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, I felt so bad for her because like, you know, you're trying to be all healthy, but you're shooting heroin, you know?
Right.
And like, you know, when she wanted to go to treatment, I was like, I'll help you go to treatment, but you can't work out. She was like, I have to go to the gym, da da da. And it's just like so interesting how like people really don't get clean until when, you know, therapists or support group or sponsors tell them, hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And if their response isn't like, I'll do anything, it probably isn't going to work. Like you need to have that like surrender deep inside you to like, I'm going to put the car in neutral and I'm just going to like let someone else take care of it.
Right.
You know?
So with my sponsees, one of the first questions that I always ask them is like, are you willing to go to any lengths? Right. And they'll be like, yeah, you know, yeah, absolutely, I am. And then it will be like, they'll be, I've had a lot of sponsees that like I'll get in rehab. And then when they get out, I'm like, okay, so like, are you going to do sober living? Like recommended? And they're like, well, actually, like, I think I was just like going to get my own apartment. And I'm like, remember, willing to go to any lengths? Remember when you told me that? Like, you know, all these things, or I'm like, call me every day for 2 weeks, or like, you know, all of these things. And then, you know, you see who's willing to do stuff. But like, if you're not, that is, and I've learned from experience, because like I said, it took me over 10 years to get it. And like, even when I first started working the steps, I would still pick and choose what I needed. Like I would never fully surrender to stuff. And then once I finally did, it actually worked. Who would have thought? It's such a simple thing, but it took me so long to figure that out. You know, I'm like so hard headed. I'm like, that was so simple, yet so hard to do, you know?
I think for me, like when I got clean, like my life was so fucked up at such a young age. I had no like delusion of like I can handle it. I was like I had a full breakdown. Like my first year clean, I probably cried like at 50% of the meetings I went to. I was raising my hand like I don't know what to do. Like I had such an ego at such a young age. Like I was like the coolest kid in school. Like I always thought like I was the man. And then like once I got into like opiates and crack, like my life just got so bad so fast that when I got clean, I was very much aware that like I was gonna die.
Right.
So like when your boyfriend died, were you in shock? Like but prior to that, were you like aware how serious it was, or was that like a big wake up call?
Was
to you?
I in shock that he died? Or
yeah, well, like you know how like in treatment they're like, well, you know, one of you is gonna die or whatever. Like, was that a big wake up call to you? Because I know for me, like my first like friend that died was a big like wake up call for me.
I mean, so they had told him, and they had told us in rehab.
Mm-hmm.
They brought him into a room and like showed him pictures of the other like past clients that had died, and told him, this is going to be you if you don't stop. But both of us were really bad with deflecting with humor in groups, and they don't like that shit when you're in rehab, you know. I still do it now. It's how I deal, you know, how I talk about my trauma. I think it makes it easier. It's an easier delivery and stuff like that, but we weren't, it wasn't the right place.
There's a time and place
right
for it. Yeah.
It wasn't the right place for it, and we weren't really taking it as seriously, you know. Deflecting with humor when you're literally in your first 30 days and trying to get your life together is not it. And yeah, I was, when I had lost other people. I had a boyfriend in New York that I lost. The one that put me on to heroin, he passed away. All of my friends are like, quite literally 95% of the friends I've ever had are dead. But when he passed, it hit me very differently. And like I said, I was like 90 days sober. And normally when someone would die, even if I was like sober for a couple weeks, it was automatic, like, relapse, you know, like, oh, this is my reason I get to go relapse now, you know, because poor me, how dare you, like, you know, I'm going through so much. And then this time was different because I felt more motivated to be sober. Like, it was like something I had never experienced before, dealing with something. I was in total shock when he died, but like it felt different, and I had this spiritual connection now, right? Like I had that. I felt so differently, and it motivated me more to, you know, continue with my recovery and be serious about everything that I was doing.
Yeah. When I had 9 months clean, I got my first sponsee, and it was someone that he used to sell me drugs. Rest in peace. His name is like Matthew Jarrett. And, I was speaking at a rehab, and he was in there, and, you know, I told my sponsor, like, oh, he asked me to sponsor him. I don't know if I'm ready. And I was like on my 4th step. So, you know, I was about to have a year, and my sponsor was like, you know, I don't know, like, I think you could help him. You know, I think, you know, he was kind of unsure about it. And I'll never forget, he was like, remember, when you sponsor somebody, you take their life in your hands. And I was like, okay, you know, and looking back, I don't think I was ready to sponsor people. I think I was too concerned with people liking me. He would tell me, hey dude, like I want to do steroids, I don't know, whatever. And I called my sponsor, and this is what my sponsor said. My sponsor was like, well, tell him he needs to go get a white key tag, and it's a relapse. And I was like, he's a little too crazy. And I never told him that. And then there was times where he was asking me questions and stuff, and I didn't have the ability to be really tough on him. So he would like not do his step work, and I'm like, it's okay, you know, at least you're staying
like the
clean.
People pleasing.
Yeah, I would really be people pleasing, and really trying to have fun with him and take him to meetings and stuff. And when he died, like all I could think about was my sponsor saying like, you take his life in your hands. And then when he died, it like understood that like we could die. We're all like gambling with our lives and like the chips and stuff at meetings. But when he died, it like did something to me that like changed my whole world. Like I wanted to be clean, but after that I was like, wow, like I really owe it now to be clean, and like I need to really figure this out.
Right.
But yeah, it's crazy because it's like, I don't know if I would have stayed clean if that incident didn't happen at that time.
Listen, I believe everything, even the most fucked up of things, happen for a reason. And that has been shown to me since I got sober. You know, once you see past yourself and you see like whatever your higher power, universe, like the coincidences that start happening, the people that are put in your life, like are just like everything that I have seen. Like I've lost jobs. I've been in so much fear over things, and I've lost things, and, you know, been freaking out, only to be blessed with better things right around the corner, you know. And it's hard to trust that process sometimes, but it has been shown to me. It's a lot easier now because I've just been shown time and time again, like if I just continue to do the things that I need to be doing, helping people, trying to not be a piece of shit, you know, being of service, doing these things, everything comes together, you know, the right way. Even the most fucked up of things, you know, have their reasons.
What other difficulties did you go through, like your first couple of years clean?
You know, I was really blessed. Like like when I got it. And I remember, I mean, I got pregnant with my youngest. I think I was like a year and a half in. And then I got really sick after I had him. I started having all these like, you know, illness problems and figuring that stuff out. That was difficult, but really I have never had a time where I've even thought about using.
Wow.
I've had times where I wanted to like blast myself. But
that's what I tell people now. It's like,
it's so weird.
I think because I go to suicide too.
Yeah.
I don't think about using, but I think about suicide.
Yeah.
So I think my brain is just like, well, why take the long road?
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, to me, I know that using, I might as well just kill myself. So to me, it's like, I don't know. My brain automatically goes to suicide.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's so dramatic. First of all,
I know. But you know what? So when I first, like, up until 3 years, maybe 2-3 years clean, I was like suicidal always. Like it was just in the background all the time, you know? And then I think like at 10 years clean, like I had a lot of trauma and like stuff happened to me. And then it like came back. And I don't know if it's going to go away, but since 10 years clean till now, it kind of is like always there. But from 3 years to 10 years, when someone would be like, oh, I'm suicidal, I'd be like, you're crazy. Like, what? Like, I couldn't even imagine that. I'd be like, what?
Right.
Why?
Until you feel
like,
it yourself.
Yeah. Like, I used to be like, dude, life is so good. Like, you know, so much to live for. Like, your whole family. Like, why? You know, not that I would judge people, but I just, I never felt that way.
Sometimes you have to feel things yourself to understand.
I know what it was like to feel it because I was just getting clean and I was miserable and like I didn't have friends, and it was just like when I was using, I was really suicidal.
Yeah.
So then when it came back, I thought it would like, you know, go away. Yeah. And like I still have thoughts like that whenever I'm high stress situations.
Yeah. It's like the go-to. I feel like I get like that sometimes too. But yeah, other than that, I've never had a time where I've just even been tempted to use it. It's always like some, you know, either like severe depression or like I want to kill myself.
What about have you gone to like therapy since getting clean?
So I really haven't done much. I started wanting to during quarantine and it was like all the virtual stuff and I couldn't find. I tried so hard. I really find a lot of therapy through, you know, talking to my sponsor, talking to other people.
Well, even your social media is like really powerful and stuff.
It really, like, my followers don't understand how much, like, I have people messaging me their stories and like all of this stuff all the time. And the fact that I can, they're saying that I help them is just like so wild to me.
It might be hard to think of, but like, what are some like interesting stories that have come from like the social media, like where someone has said like you've helped me, or like,
well, so I mean, I started like posting about recovery. Like I was real mild in the beginning. I would just make little funny ones, and then people would ask questions, so I would open up more about it. And then I started getting real bold and like sharing probably too much, you know, like the nitty gritty that nobody really talks about, you know, at least to the public. People probably talk about it in meetings, but like I was out here just talking about some real vulgar things that happen and go on. And then the amount of people that related to those situations and just like the outpouring of messages that I've gotten is just absolutely insane. Like it's just, I get people that pour out their hearts to me on a daily basis in my DMs, and the fact that they feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable with me like that, and they don't even know me is just, it's wild.
There's a kid on the podcast. I actually had him on the podcast, but I remember he said like, I was using I was listening to the podcast for months in my active addiction, and you kept talking about meetings in Florida because he had gone to meetings, but he was like living in like the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And he's like, the meetings I would go to were kind of like whack, and you would just like talk about recovery down there. I was like, so fun. And he's like, dude, I would listen to the podcast all the time, and then one day he just moved to Florida.
And got clean?
To Fort Lauderdale, got into a halfway.
Wow.
And then was clean, and like no treatment, nothing. And like I would run into him, and he wouldn't tell me the whole story. Like, oh hey, I listened to the podcast. Like, oh cool, whatever. And like one day he was like, yeah, bro, that's the reason why I moved here. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. So it's like, it's cool because, you know, social media and the podcast, or social media in general, gets like such a bad rep. Like, oh, social media is ruining our generation. People have TikTok brain. But there's such like a powerful, positive way to use it that is life-changing and impactful to like, you couldn't reach anybody like that on any, like without social media.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. It totally depends on how you use it. And I've had a lot of situations like that too, where people will message me and they're like, I'm trying to get clean. I'm trying to detox. Like, do you have any advice? And like, whatever. And I also host like a recovery support group on Zoom, like virtually. And we've been doing it for almost 2 years now. And I've watched people come in with no clean time, right? Like no sobriety. And now years, like just watching the light come back on, like even virtually. And I've never met most of these people in person, but like, this is my family. Those are my family. Like, it's so wild. And that's what I'm saying. These like, you know, these virtual relationships, through social media and the things that have come about are just like such a blessing, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy because I have friends that I didn't meet for years that I just met through social media or whatever, and I feel closer to them than some people I've known for years in person.
You know them. Like, you don't, I feel like you don't these days, you know, you don't necessarily have to know someone face to face to know them.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I love doing the pod. You're asking like, you know, like I love doing the podcast because it's like such a resource for people. And it's like, some people, this is the first time they hear about 12-step meetings.
Right.
And it's like, I think it's so important to be like a young person in recovery and to have like some type of, not that everyone has to do it obviously, but it's like, I don't, like when I was using or when I first got clean, there was literally like one guy who was like kind of young who like would go to the meeting who had like more than 5 years. There wasn't a whole bunch of people that were younger that had recovery that would like make it seem possible or even like fun. Because sometimes, you know, you go to meetings and it's like, okay, that might be cool for you, but like you guys are like in your 50s and like in your 40s and like, you know, lost everything. So like now you're happy like going to the recovery dance on Friday and like, you know, what else are you going to do? So a lot of times it does make a lot of sense for young people to see like other young people to feel like, oh wow, I could do this and my life wouldn't be ending. It would be fun or cool or whatever.
Well, I think that's so important, and like that's the, you know, attraction rather than promotion type shit, because when other young people see other young people doing it, they're more inclined, like if they say, oh, like this kid is not living a absolutely boring, dreadful life, like maybe I could do this too. There's a lot of young people in Austin that they have
if you live in a major city and you go to meetings, you're gonna find all different, like, you know, slower meetings, faster paced meetings, like you know, I tell everyone, like, if you want to find young people, go to the late night meetings, like 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, or where the young people are going to go. If you're older, go to the noon meeting, you know? So it's like, if you're in, but there are some areas that don't have an 8:30 Friday night meeting. You know what I mean? There are some areas where they have 3 meetings a week. Right. And maybe the fellowship isn't really that. There's not a lot of community. There's not like a lot of events.
That was me in New York.
You know? In New York, it was like that.
There, I had to drive, and I did NA. I did NA in New York. I do AA now in Austin. Yeah. But for NA meetings, they literally had, I don't know, there wasn't even one every single day of the week. I had to drive 45 minutes sometimes to go to like a meeting that I like. They had AA, but AA back home was also very different. So I went to treatment in 2013, and like that time I was actually pretty serious about my recovery. And when I got home, I wanted to do 90 and 90. They didn't have enough NA meetings for me to do that. Wow. I went to an early bird AA meeting and I raised my hand. I was like, I'm Rachel, I'm an addict. at the end of the meeting, 2 dudes came up to me and they were like, this is not where you need to be. Old timers, right? So like I was like, fuck AA, I'm never coming back, you know? And then thank God I had such a different experience once I came to Austin. It really depends on where you are, the people that are in it. And that's what I tell people, even the recovery support group that I run. It's not a 12-step based thing. I talk about my 12-step, you know, experience and everything like that. And if people want to know about it or they want to explore that, I definitely support them, right? But I always tell them, because people will come in and they'll be like, I had such a bad experience with AA, and I'm like, dude, I've had that too, but sometimes you have to move around and like find it's different everywhere.
What I tell people is like, a meeting is not the program. So it's like you could go to a million LA fitnesses, right? And one sucks and one's whatever. Then there's like, you know, UFit, and then there's like this gym, and then there's like CrossFit, and there's like, you know, outside. It's like you need to work out. Yeah. So don't throw out working out because you don't like a gym. Right. So like what I always tell people is like, you need to find the meetings that you like, and like there's no excuse for it, because it's like when I was doing drugs, I wasn't like, well, I really don't like that crack dealer. You know what I mean? So it's like when I was using, I fucking put up with shit and dealt with shit, and I practiced compassion, I practiced tolerance, and I put my feelings to the side to get what I needed to get. Right. So it's like when I go to the gym, I'm not necessarily there to make a whole bunch of friends or whatever. I'm there to get what I need to get. And if I have one or two friends, I tell people like, dude, you need 3 friends. If you got 3 friends in recovery, that's it. You don't need to be friends with everybody, whatever, you know. It's like you got 3 solid people. Because I have people that I sponsor, like, well, I don't like meetings because I don't hate everybody. I'm like, what about this person? Oh, I like that guy. What about this person? Well, they're cool. What about this person? Right. Well, you just listed 3 people. So why don't you just focus on the 3 people you do like instead of focusing on the 200 people you don't like? Right. And sometimes it's just like, you know, put some effort to go to different meetings. Do Zoom meetings. Go to a meeting outside of your area, you know. And then I was talking to my friend last night. We all got like gassed up because, like, you know, I have 15 years. He probably has like 22 years. And we both, we both go to meetings a lot, you know? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, bro, it's really hard for me to understand how people, a lot of successful people, like a lot of successful people, I guess anybody, but like we know a lot of successful people that like don't go to meetings or like give back or anything, which I'm sure they do, like church or something. But to me, it's like, how are you going to go to a program with nothing, get your whole life back, and then as soon as you get your life back, you leave? Yeah. And it's like they talk about don't leave like before the miracle. A lot of people leave after the miracle. Yeah. Like, oh, thanks, I got the miracle. Like, I'm out of here.
Yeah. But then a lot of people will be good for a little bit, and then all of a sudden they're dead. Oh, I've seen that like so many times. You know?
There's so many people I looked up to that I never thought would relapse when I was like first got clean. And then it's crazy. Yeah. And the most gun-ho recovery, like recovery tattoos all over them. And they're like, I don't go to meetings or whatever. And I try not to be like a Nazi about it, you know, like I try not to be like, but I just see so much positivity in meetings that I just don't understand like how people could like get all this from it and then like bash it or whatever. Yeah. But
yeah, I think, you know, everyone has their own experience and they got to live their own journey, I guess.
And I have friends that do other things. They're like, well, you know, I don't like the program anymore. I do therapy and stuff. Like, I could respect that, you know. And it's like, I just don't understand how like so many people have like such like a bad taste in their mouth from the program just because you had a resentment over 3 people, you know.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think it happens a lot, you know. I've had a lot of friends that have gone, you know, I know so many people that have gone through, they're like, oh, they're just like judgy and they're fake and just like you said, it is not the program, it's the people in it. And guess what? Some people that have 20 years, 30 years, 50 years can still be just as sick as a newcomer. You know, everyone's going through their own stuff. So I think that it's unfortunate that sometimes the people in the meeting can be that like deciding factor for people.
And then a lot of times like, well, I don't really hear anything I need to hear anymore. I'm just like, at what point do you go to a meeting and think like, I need to be giving and doing something? You know, it's like, you know, when you even like live your life, like when you live your life, like thinking like, what am I going to get out of every scenario? You have a very like victim, toxic mindset. But like if you go into every situation, whether it's a meeting or work or whatever, like what can I do to help? You know, it's like maybe you should go to that meeting that you hate to make it better if it sucks so bad. You know, why don't you raise your hand and say something great, you know? Yeah. But My cat is so cute. Look at him. I didn't think I thought he'd be like going off the chain.
No,
yeah.
He's
just sleeping there.
Look. That's a sweet baby.
You have cats or dogs?
I don't have anything right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just have too much going on at home. Once I buy a house, which is hopefully next year, I'm gonna buy a house and then I'll get a dog. I don't know.
You like big dogs or little dogs?
I like big dogs, but they also have big poops. And they're big.
You know what? I like big dogs too. I feel like you have sometimes I could tell if someone's a big dog person, a little dog
really?
person. Yeah, I feel like annoying yappy girls are like little dog people, and like more tomboyish, cooler girls are like big dog people. But I didn't mean to be mean in either way, but
no, it's okay.
But sometimes you'll see a dog that looks like a big dog, but it's smaller. You know? What I mean? Those are cool. I'm trying to think of one, but I don't know.
Well, my best friend just got a Rottweiler.
Okay.
And that's a big boy. He's a big boy. I like little dogs too. I don't really know. I'd have to look into what type of. Maybe I'll get a schmedium.
A schmedium dog. Yeah, I think a schmedium dog would be cool.
Yeah.
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 Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Thank you for coming all the way from Austin. I hope you liked Florida for the small time that you were here.
For an 18-hour trip.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.